It's the middle of the night, and as two planes race through the sky, they have no idea that they're actually racing towards each other. The disaster that ensues is one of tragic devastation. A mid-air collision that the world won't soon forget. June 2002. The city of Ufa in western Russia is populated by both Christians and Muslims. And this year, its most outstanding teenagers have been chosen to go on a 2-week vacation, organized by UNESCO near Barcelona, Spain. They are among Ufa's most clever, athletic, and artistic children. Kirill Degchariev is a 14-year-old prodigy. He's been painting since he was 4 years old, has already had 2 public exhibitions, and is halfway through his new work.
He was very good at painting. He felt colors. He received good reviews. The trip sounded very exciting. That's why we agreed that Kirill should go to Spain. He just graduated from grade 9. He needed some rest, and it was a good opportunity for a summer holiday.
Alina Kananova is 12 years old and has won several gymnastics competitions.
We were very glad for her because indeed very smart and very talented children were flying there, all extraordinary children in terms of their personalities. She studied very well, and she got only excellent marks. I remember that she was pleased to go on the trip. She loved getting ready for it. She was so excited. We purchased some clothes and some vacation stuff. As she was born, I informed my husband, and he cried because he was happy to have a daughter.
The 45 children from Ufa, accompanied by a few teachers, leave on a train to Moscow, where they'll catch their flight to Barcelona. But in Moscow, things start to go wrong. The tourist agency accidentally takes the children to the wrong airport, so they miss their plane. While the agency tries to sort out the mess, the children go sightseeing in the Russian capital. It takes 2 days to charter another jet, and finally, they're on their way to Barcelona. On July 1st, 2002, the children from Ufa board their plane at a Moscow airport. The Kaloyevs aren't part of the school group. They're going on vacation to visit their father, an architect finishing a project near Barcelona. Five Russians are flying this plane. The captain is Alexander Gross, who's been a pilot for more than 30 years.
Alexander had a good theoretical knowledge. He was very smart.
The first officer is Oleg Grigoriev, the airline's chief pilot. He's on board to evaluate Captain Gross's flying.
If you did something wrong, some captains would criticize you very rudely. Others would be very formal and polite. But Oleg Grigoriev would express his disapproval in a gesture, like that, meaning, why on earth did you do that?
Captain Gross holds the controls, but Captain Grigoriev is his supervisor. If something goes wrong, who'll take charge of the situation? Sitting in the left rear is Murat Itkilov, who isn't officially on duty because Grigoriev is in his seat. Since he'll be promoted from first officer to captain soon, his opinions are considered.
Murat был профессионален как пилот. Любил летать.
Murat was a very professional pilot. He loved to fly. Murat was interested in the new stuff in aviation and always kept up to date on the most progressive things brought in.
Just before 11 that evening, Bashkirian Airlines Flight 2937 leaves Moscow. The plane is a Tupolev 154. Like most modern aircraft, it's equipped with TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System.
Descend, descend, descend.
TCAS works because all commercial aircraft carry a transponder which sends a constant stream of radio signals that identify and locate them. TCAS listens in and calculates whether any of the planes are on a collision course. If they are, it tells the pilot what action to take to avoid collision.
Descend, descend.
If air traffic control fails to notify the cockpit, TCAS is their last line of defense.
Clear of conflict.
Hundreds of miles away in Bergamo, Italy, a Boeing 757 prepares for takeoff. Flying for the international freight company DHL, it's heading for their base in Brussels, Belgium. Flight 2937 from Russia will cross its path over southern Germany. The DHL 757 has only 2 people on board, Captain Paul Phillips from the UK and First Officer Brant Campioni from Canada, who's due to fly the next leg of the journey. At 6 minutes after 11, the DHL takes off on what will be its last journey. At the SkyGuide Area Control Center in Zurich, Switzerland, the busy day shift is ended and the night shift is reporting to work. Peter Nielsen is an experienced controller who's been doing the job for 8 years. The center regulates air traffic in southern Germany as well as northern Switzerland. Tonight, there are only 2 controllers on duty, but the traffic in their sector is light, so Nielsen's colleague decides to take a lengthy break. Peter Nielsen is now responsible for all air traffic on 2 radar screens, which sit several feet apart. Just after 11, 2 SkyGuide technicians arrive to carry out maintenance work on the main radar, which will not only drastically slow the screens down, it will also keep them from providing a visual 2-minute warning if planes are getting too close to each other.
Thai Inter 933, route traffic in Allgäu. Bavarian 350, descend flight level 270.
The engineers now tell Peter that they also have to shut down the telephone system. And they switch over to the standby phones. No one realizes the extent of the disaster that is to come as a result of this action. Russian Flight 2937, filled with school children, is now flying over central Germany. Captain Grigoriev gets final clearance from the last German control center before they cross south into Switzerland.
128.05, Bravo Tango Charlie 2937. Goodbye.
The German controller hands over the Russian plane to SkyGuide, where Peter Nielsen is at the helm. Meanwhile, the DHL plane is climbing north over the Alps, entering Swiss airspace.
Zurich, radar, good evening. Dilmun 611, I'm climbing flight level 260, direct Obasi.
DHL Captain Paul Phillips requests clearance to climb to a higher altitude. Thinner air provides less air resistance and saves fuel.
Roger, climb flight level 320. Direct Tango Golf Oscar and requesting 360, thanks, if it's available.
Dilmun 611, climb flight level 360.
The DHL reaches flight level 360, or 36,000 feet, the same altitude as the Russian plane. They're on a collision course, but they're many miles apart. So far, no danger. Peter Nielsen's assistant gives him a new flight strip. An Airbus Aeroloid Flight 1135 is flying to the Friedrichshafen airport nearby. Over the next 5 minutes, his workload will increase dramatically, requiring him to switch from one screen to another. Peter tries to dial the airport control tower at Friedrichshafen to give them command of the Aeroloid flight. But the line is dead. He tries a second time. The phones aren't working. The Aeroloid pilot is trying to make contact with Peter, so he leaves the Russian pilots unattended. But the Russian pilot is also calling him on the other screen.
Aeroloid 1135, roger. Call you back. Station calling. Say again, please.
Zurich, good evening. Bravo Tango Charlie, 2937.
Level 360.
Bravo Tango Charlie 2937, squawk 7520.
The Aeroloid is calling again.
Yeah, expect so. Call you back shortly.
Now, another plane needs him. A Thai Airways flight heading north.
Thai into 933. Contact now on Munich 132.140. Goodbye. 140, Thai 933.
Air traffic controllers are used to handling tricky situations, but Peter's
Aeroloid
equipment isn't working
1135,
properly,
descend
and he's
flight
controlling
level
2 screens at the same time. Normally, his radar would warn of an impending collision, but tonight, it's out of service, and he's completely unaware.
Correct. What is your present heading?
Present heading is 265.
Roger. Right turn, heading 280, vector ILS 24.
Right heading 2804 to expect ILS 24, Aeroloid 1.
Peter needs to get the Aeroloid flight off his hands, so he tries dialing the Friedrichshafen control tower for the 3rd time.
Verbindung ist nicht möglich. Bitte überprüfen Sie die Rufnummer. Die gewünschte Verbindung.
Meanwhile, the Russian and DHL planes continue heading towards each other at a closing speed of over 800 miles per hour. Neither crew is aware that they're only 2.5 minutes apart. The DHL plane is now approaching the Swiss border. The Russian Tupolev is heading for exactly the same spot at the same altitude. Finally, someone at another air traffic control center in Germany spots the danger. He tries to call and warn Peter Nielsen, but can't get through. International air traffic rules prevent him from contacting the pilots directly.
Look at that.
Now, for the first time, the Russian pilots can see the DHL plane on the screen of their TCAS anti-collision computer. But Peter Nielsen is still focused on getting the Aeroloid flight safely down.
Aeroloid 1135.
Aeroloid 1135, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I lost my connection to Friedrichshafen Airport. Could you please call them on your second set, 124.35. Tell them you're coming in ILS 24 with 20 miles now?
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, taking over.
On the DHL cargo plane, the crew is relaxed. They don't know they're on a collision course because their TCAS hasn't sounded a warning yet.
Stuff I can get you?
The first officer goes to the restroom. The pilot's concern on the Russian plane continues to grow. The other plane is getting closer and closer, but they aren't exactly sure whether they're at the same altitude.
He's going below us.
Why below?
500.
No, 100 meters.
Traffic.
Why?
Traffic.
TCAS, the collision avoidance computer, warns the Russian pilots that the other plane is getting too close for comfort. At the same moment, the TCAS in the DHL cockpit detects the Russian plane.
Descend.
Peter Nielsen finally realizes what's happening.
Bravo Tango Charlie 2937, descend flight level 350. Expedite, I have crossing traffic.
Descend.
Captain Gross disengages the autopilot and starts to descend. TCAS is telling them to climb, while the controller is telling them to descend.
It says climb.
He is guiding us down.
Bravo Tango Charlie 2937, descend level 350, expedite descent.
Expedite descent level 350.
Bravo Tango Charlie 2937.
Peter Nielsen thinks he's averted a collision by telling the Russian plane to descend. But what he doesn't know is that the DHL pilots have received a TCAS instruction telling them to descend.
Increase! Dilmoon 600, TCAS descent.
They're trying to tell Peter that they have a TCAS instruction to descend, but he can't hear them. If both planes obey TCAS, there will be no problem. But the Russians, instead of climbing, follow the controller's orders. Both planes are diving towards each other.
He's going below us.
Where is it?
Peter on the left!
Increase climb.
Climb, it says!
Climb! Descend! Descend hard! Climb!
The tail of the DHL plane clips the belly of the Tupolev, tearing it apart. The pilots quickly lose consciousness. The DHL 757 struggles on for another 2 minutes. It will crash 4 miles away.
Can we go over to 337?
Affirm. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Peter is not aware of what just happened.
Bravo Tango Charlie 2937. Bravo Tango Charlie 2937. Bravo Tango Charlie.
This is every controller's nightmare. 2 of his aircraft colliding and killing hundreds of people.
Oh!
Peter Nielsen leaves the control room for the last time, but his story is far from over. The wreckage of the 2 planes has fallen just outside the small city of Überlingen, on the German-Swiss border. Scattered over 130 square miles, it's the worst mid-air collision in German post-war history. Debris comes raining down around a school for handicapped children, run by Bruno and Stella Wegmuller.
The sky was orange, red, flaming, and we saw these pieces falling down and detonations again and again, and we realized it couldn't have been a normal thunderstorm. It was something we had never heard and seen before.
It was incredible because there are many houses here, and there was nothing. on this place. But around our school, we find bodies, children.
We very soon also realized that we couldn't do anything really. We couldn't save anyone, we couldn't help anyone. Today actually some people still suffer and see the pictures and have to learn to deal with these pictures. And for other people it is like a bad dream.
The problem was that the bodies and debris were dispersed over a very, very wide area, approximately 40 square kilometers. A corridor 20 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide.
It was the largest police operation in the province of Baden-Württemberg, lasting a week and involving over 6,000 people. The policeman is standing where the DHL plane crashed.
Here you see no more trees. The trees have completely burned down. We assume that the turbines of the Boeing separated first, approximately 700 to 800 meters high before this plane crashed. One landed 300 meters that way, and the other turbine was another 500 meters that way.
In this garden lay many of the bodies of the children of Ufa.
In this part died 28 children. In this field there was a child. More over here in this field there was a
When they showed a close-up of an airplane, I saw an emblem of our Bashkir Airlines on the rear of the aircraft. I was in the kitchen. Everybody was still asleep. I nearly fainted. I leaned to the table. I didn't know what to do.
The Kononov family lost their only daughter. Irina Degtyaryeva lost her only child.
We hoped for some kind of a miracle, that he missed the plane. In a word, we didn't want to believe in this news. It was like thunder in a clear sky, and God forbid anyone gets news like this.
Vitaly Kaloyev, the Russian architect, was awaiting his family in Barcelona. He's one of the first to arrive in Überlingen. And although relatives aren't encouraged to participate in the search, Vitaly cannot help himself. Vitaly finds a broken pearl necklace and immediately recognizes it as his 4-year-old daughter's.
My angel.
Amazingly, among all the carnage, Vitaly finds his daughter's body intact.
She did not suffer at all.
The mutilated bodies of his wife and son won't be found until later. Over 6 days of searching, rescue workers gather bodies and body parts scattered all over the southern German countryside.
By Thursday of that week, 2 days later, the relatives started arriving. They could not all see the bodies we'd found because most of the bodies were badly charred or mutilated. We didn't permit the relatives to view the bodies in that condition.
In Ufa, Western Russia, both Christian and Muslim communities are devastated by the loss of their children. In the cemetery where 53 of the Tupolev victims are buried, there are 2 double rows of gravestones, with Christian Orthodox on one side and Muslims on the other, eerily reminiscent of the seating arrangement on the plane. A monument of paper planes frozen in flight commemorates those who perished. This is Kirill's grave, the young talented artist. And this is Alina's, the 12-year-old gymnast. Vitaly Kyloyev, who lost his entire family, designed and built a huge monument in their memory. Day and night, he lingers at the cemetery, inconsolable. After the collision, work at Skyguide decreased dramatically.
People were in a state of shock. They were shocked, they were helpless, there was a lot of sadness, people crying. And we were criticized for being too technocratic after the accident. I have to accept that. One of the biggest tasks was to maintain operations, because there were planes coming in, going out after this tragedy, and that was a very, very difficult situation for everybody.
For the next 3 weeks at the Zurich Air Traffic Control Center, capacity is reduced for lack of available controllers. Peter Nielsen never worked on an air traffic workstation again.
If you go through something like that, you're not able to come back. It's too deep in, and it's too big.
From an emotional point of view, of course, it was shattering. It was, for me, really, really terrible. Terrible in the sense that it happened to one of my colleagues, it happened to our profession, but it also happened to families who lost their children.
The hunt begins for a scapegoat. If 2 planes collide in empty skies, someone must be to blame. At first, some suspect the Russians.
The pilot of the Russian plane is said to have ignored repeated instructions from air traffic controllers. And while the
repeatedly, they contacted the Russian pilot and asked him to change altitude because he was flying at a level where he should not have been. Now, the Russian pilot never responded to those warnings from air traffic control.
The Russian pilots, particularly in Soviet times, and also now, but to a lesser extent, were extremely well trained. I have no concerns about the training of pilots. They've been trained for almost every operational possibility that could happen.
Why did the TCAS device meant to avoid collisions, in this case maybe help cause one?
And why didn't the Russian plane descend when first ordered? A language problem? Controller commands are always in English.
I knew everybody from that crew. Everybody knew English enough to speak with controller.
So who is to blame? The media spotlight now falls on controller Peter Nielsen, who guided the 2 planes towards each other. They were under his control, so he must have caused them to collide.
I was as shocked as I could have been with any other name or any other colleague. I was just very sorry for him. The media coverage about the incident very often makes you angry because these statements are taken out of context.
And what more do we know about this Swiss controller at the center of the investigation?
He was chased by the media. He was accused of being a murderer.
He's the man, obviously, everyone wants to talk to, but at the moment, the Swiss say he's in no position to talk. And we heard today that the Swiss authorities have opened an investigation to see whether there's enough evidence for charges of manslaughter.
and an investigation is underway, headed by Germany's air crash detectives, the BFU. By the 5th day, all the black boxes have been examined.
So this is a typical voice recorder, which was built into the Tupolev 154. It shows 2 reels. The recording time of this recorder is 30 minutes. And this is rather solid, but the original voice recorder of the Tupolev was heavily damaged. So we had to remove the tape and replay it on such a specialized tape recorder.
This is the hangar where wreckage of the planes was examined.
This one here is the lower surface of the right wing of the Tupolev, and that remaining stub here went below the Tupolev and caused these scratches.
July 2003. Many parents returned to Überlingen, Germany for the first anniversary. The Germans built a memorial on the site of the tragedy, made of a series of giant silver pearls on a broken necklace. The CEO of Skyguide is among the crowd.
Can you tell us, what are the mistakes you made?
I don't think this is the time to talk about it. I'm sure you'll understand.
Have you apologized?
Okay. Thank you.
Among the parents is Vitaly Kaloyev, who asks the head of Skyguide which controller was responsible for the accident, but receives no answer.
Yes, in fact, the man asked if it is possible to meet the controller, to meet Peter, and the answer was it is not possible.
The request passes almost unnoticed, but Vitaly isn't satisfied.
Descend. Crossing.
Meanwhile, investigators discover a fog of confusion surrounding TCAS. When it was introduced over 20 years ago, there'd been a fatal omission.
Descend flight level 350. Expedite.
No one determined what should happen if there was a conflict between what TCAS and the controller were saying.
It says climb.
There was no hard and fast rule to guide the pilots.
He is guiding us down.
Increase descent.
While pilots in the West have always been taught to obey TCAS,
TCAS descent.
in the rest of the world, it's anyone's guess.
We're not accustomed to not trusting controllers. In civil aviation, there were lots of situations when pilots didn't follow instructions of the controller, and that led to plane crashes or other accidents.
The mentality of Russians is still very much in the lines of the old Soviet ways, and they're much more inclined to follow instructions than to do what they think may be appropriate. They always reckon that the other guy knows better.
The potential for a terrible accident was there, and it nearly happened a year and a half before the Überlingen tragedy. 2 jumbo jets over Japan, with 677 people on board, came so close that they filled each other's windscreens. The violent avoidance maneuver caused 100 people to be injured, some of them seriously. This could have been a devastating plane crash, because once again, a pilot listened to the controller instead of his TCAS. It should have served as a warning to everyone. Yet there was only silence from ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, who's responsible for the rules of commercial aviation. German investigators say that their vagueness about how to use TCAS was one of the reasons for the Überlingen disaster.
If ICAO had carried out a detailed investigation of the incident in Japan and made recommendations that led to changes in procedures, this probably would not have happened.
ICAO did not feel it necessary to get involved in this, and they left it entirely up to the Japanese authorities. Had it been a collision, maybe they would have got involved.
After this near miss, the Japanese government immediately asked for their guidance. But unfortunately, ICAO didn't act on the request until 18 months later, after the Überlingen disaster.
Perhaps the ICAO procedures and standards, but in particular operating procedures for airborne collision avoidance, were somewhat ambiguous or open to interpretation.
The Japanese incident wasn't the only warning ICAO received. In the years leading up to the Überlingen collision, other near misses happened because one set of pilots obeyed air traffic control instead of their TCAS.
If I have to summarize the advice that we gave the world, if a warning comes from ACAS, pilots should immediately follow it at all times. With the benefit of hindsight, you always ask yourself, could we have done more? And an accident is a wake-up call for everybody.
All of these regrets are of little comfort to the grieving parents of Ufa.
Everything that was good is in the past and was connected with my child. All the hopes, dreams were connected with him, with his future. And now, nothing left. At least I've got nothing left. So the right way to put it is, my life didn't change. It stopped. Our pain doesn't go away, you know? It's getting stronger every year. It's getting harder to live. At first, we had a hope that she'd come back, that time would pass and things would fall into right places. And now the hope is gone. And the worst thing is that the kids were flying happy. Healthy kids were going on a vacation. And some grown-up people made a mistake, made a fatal mistake. And the kids were gone.
She was loved. She was very kind, gentle. She was the beloved daughter. Beloved daughter.
Vitaly Kaloyev, the Russian architect, has lost his entire family, and he has fallen to pieces. Obsessed with finding out who's responsible for the collision, Kaloyev travels to Zurich to play out the last tragic chapter in the Überlingen story. On February 24th, 2004, a stranger arrives at the house of controller Peter Nielsen.
Yeah. Get out of my face. Just go away.
It was just the saddest thing you can imagine. I knew his family. I knew how much he loved his kids and his wife, and
the presumed perpetrator is apparently 48 years old and of Eastern origin. He is likely the father of one of the families that was killed at the crash. He likely lost his wife and both their children.
They find Vitaly Kaloyev in a nearby hotel. Suspected but not yet charged with the murder. He's currently in a psychiatric clinic until they decide whether he's fit to stand trial.
Did he have the capacity to discern? Was it an impulse, or did he have the capacity to commit a crime?
Certain traces and police evidence were found which seemed to indicate that he could be the murderer.
We are working on this theory, after the accused himself conceded that he could be the murderer.
We didn't want him to be killed. We didn't want to have more victims related to that catastrophe because of our children.
The killing of the flight controller was a very, very sad event. And the saddest thing of all was that he was not actually responsible for the accident. The system responsible for the accident was the poor Skyguide management and quality control of their system.
Investigators worked out exactly what went wrong that night at Skyguide, and how an unfortunate series of events made the disaster almost inevitable. First, Peter's colleague goes for a break, leaving him alone to watch two radar screens several feet apart.
It was a standard practice at the ATC company that at night, one air traffic controller was responsible for controlling the entire airspace of ATC Zurich.
Then, following management instructions, the maintenance men start turning things off. Peter's radar screen is working more slowly and won't warn him if two planes are about to collide, which he doesn't know. STCA, or Short-Term Collision Alert, is a warning on the radar screen that planes are in imminent danger of colliding. Then, an unexpected aircraft, the Aero Lloyd tourist plane, arrives at a critical moment and requires a lot of attention, which completely distracts Peter. He tries to get outside help, but the main phone system has been accidentally disconnected by the maintenance crew, and the backup phone isn't working either. Peter Nielsen has been robbed of all the technical support he needs.
The phone link with Friedrichshafen was down. At this time, there were various radio transmissions, and the controller had to answer them on the different frequencies.
Finally, when both planes are descending, the DHL pilots can't tell Peter what's happening because the radio frequency is busy.
TCAS descent.
The earliest they could do that was 23 seconds later, because until then, the frequency was blocked by the ATC Zurich transmission to the Tupolev crew.
May 2004. It took German BFU investigators 22 months to publish their final report. Two main causes were given for the disaster. First, Peter Nielsen didn't notice the danger of the collision quickly enough. And second, the Russian crew was wrong to obey Peter's order to descend rather than their own TCAS equipment telling them to climb. But other pilots understand their dilemma.
The TCAS commands are spoken in such a dispassionate voice. Descend, increase descent. Such a matter-of-fact type of voice. And then there's the voice of the air traffic controller's urgent command. Descend immediately, leave this altitude immediately, go to another altitude at once. So, whichever voice sounded more urgent was the one the crew obeyed.
Finally, the report severely criticized Skyguide for leaving a lone controller on duty that night.
Why didn't they provide safety during that flight, when my child was on board? They must take the responsibility for not providing security for that flight.
Mistakes were made by us also, and we regret them deeply. We acknowledge our responsibility as set out in the BFU report, and we ask the families of the victims for forgiveness.
At Skyguide in Zurich, a rose now sits in a vase to commemorate Peter Nielsen and the tragedy of Überlingen.